going to be a focus for this class. There's many other classes. I'm sure you've seen the catalog. We have different classes that you can take advantage of. During this presentation, you can stop me at any moment. You can raise your hand, and you can ask questions. You can drop a chat question. If I don't have the answer today or now during this class, I can get you that answer later on. And you can always connect with me even after the class. With that being said, we'll get started. Are there any questions before I get started? Connectivity issues, video, audio?
This is solely for veterans, right?
It's not just veterans. It could be for anyone transitioning into cybersecurity. We talk a lot about veterans, how various skills transition into cybersecurity, and it could really be for anyone.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. With that being said, like I said, my name is Kuferi. I go by Kuf. Currently, I'm on ISSM. It's a role. During the course of this class, we will talk about different roles. You get to be very familiar with ISSM. ISSM's subject matter experts with IT compliance and policies, enforcing those policies. I currently I'm an ISSM for an Air Force program for Air Force Central Command. I have over 25 years experience in the IT and cybersecurity space. I was in the military for 22 of those years. I recently retired. As you can tell, my niche is cybersecurity compliance. I was a sysadmin, I was a techie, and then over the years, I transitioned into compliance. As you will see in this course, that there's a lot of different areas in cybersecurity. You get to pick what excites you and what you really want to dive into, because it's so broad that I don't know if any one person can possibly do everything in cybersecurity, which is very interesting. Subject matter expert to be in, subject matter to be in. I like hiking on Sundays only, reading, gardening, working on my yard, and all that. This is the agenda for the 6 weeks course that we're hosting here. Week 1, we will be talking about transferable skills, whatever it is that you do now. We can tie that into a role that you can have in cybersecurity. And then in week 2, we'll talk about cybersecurity fundamentals, the basics, of cybersecurity, what it is, what it's about, the different areas of cybersecurity. And in week 3, we'll talk about the tools, because cybersecurity is all about the tools. What tools you use for this, what tool you use for log server, what tools you use for this. You'll see that there's a lot of tools out there that we use to enforce cybersecurity, to perform all the roles that we'll be talking about here. In week 4, we'll talk about governance. Governance is all about checks and balances. There's a policy, and then there's governance to make sure that those policies are being enforced. If you just tell somebody, hey, make sure you're PCI certified so you can get credit cards. If you don't enforce that policy, then you don't have a policy. It's just like a law. You can have laws out there. If you don't enforce it, nothing's going to happen. That's a governance part of cybersecurity, looking over the implementation of compliance. Risk is a big area in cybersecurity, risk and compliance. And talk about compliance, where you have the GRC is all looped in together. Governance, risk, and compliance is a huge sector in cybersecurity. And we talk about career development, how you can develop a career. You once we talk about all this different areas of cybersecurity, we talk about your career development. So, okay, I'm interested in compliance, and then we can jump into it. You can do a SOC team, which is Security Operating Center, a Security Operations Center, where you basically monitor like a gatekeeper, see what's going on a platform or a network. That's the GRC. Sorry, the career development part. You can pick whatever career you want in cybersecurity, and we can talk about how you can take that and expound it to fit your what you want to do in cybersecurity. And then launching your career is going to talk about, okay, now that you identify what you want to do, or pick a couple of different areas you want to focus on, we can talk about what you're interested in and maybe help you point you in the right direction. Help you with resume. We can review your resume on this platform. We have people that are qualified, and we can review your resume and make you marketable and with all the skills that you're going to be learning on this platform. Okay, please make sure you stop me if you have any questions so you don't forget what you want to ask. Okay. Okay, like I said, this is what you should expect in this class every Tuesday evening. Like I said, this is a 6-week guided program. We're going to talk about all the things I just mentioned. It's a 2-hour session. For the first 30 to 45 minutes, we're going to talk about theory. I'm going to show you some slides. I don't want to, do PowerPoint all night. We're going to have we're going to open the floor for discussion, questions, mentorship. So it's going to be about an hour and 15 minutes of discussion and support. This is going to be focused. Like I said, I'm a veteran, so I speak from experience. I've been there, so I can answer some questions, or I can get you the answers that you need if I don't have the answers. It's designed to help service members translate their military experience, because a lot of military experience, whether you did IT or cybersecurity, can directly translate into some very valuable skills in the cybersecurity world. As you can see, it's security, paying attention to detail, being vigilant, all those keywords. It's relatable in cybersecurity. This is an instructor-led learning. It's live. As you can see, I'm live. Interactive session led by seasoned cybersecurity professionals. We'll get you the answers and help guide you along the way. We provide career transition support, personalized guidance. I talked about resume writing. We can guide you in the right direction. Help. Talk about certifications that's relevant to the area of cybersecurity that you want to go into. We can do mock interviews if that's needed, and get you prepared for the workforce. A lot of you're going to be hearing a lot about like frameworks in cybersecurity and tools awareness. I talk about tools, tools like scanning tools. You just SIEM, security information, manager, where you put all the alerts and logs go into this database where you can go in and review the logs. We talk about that. That's a huge tool. Vulnerability scanning tools. So you're going to hear a lot about tools and framework. Framework works hand in hand with the governance. Frameworks are, I would say, like laws out there, or like guidance and policies out there that that compliance is built to respond to those frameworks. As you can see, you're going to see a lot of frameworks. There's a NIST 853 is just one of the frameworks that's really I don't want to say popular, but for lack of a better word, NIST 853 is one of the most talked about NIST policy out there. And you will see why. We talked about risk management. So you have RMF, that's another NIST framework. I believe it's NIST 837 is a risk management framework. It guides you on how to implement a systematic compliance using that framework. And then you have the ISO, is an international standards that a lot of it's an industry standard, global standard that is used to measure your cybersecurity, information security compliance. We'll dive into the ISOs and risk management framework and the NIST standards that we have, and the key tools and roles shaping today's cyber landscape. You're going to hear CMMC. We didn't mention it here, but CMMC is a big tool. You're going to hear a lot about that, where the history of CMMC is that, DOD a few years ago found out, well, we're spending so much money hardening our DOD networks, but the government contractors, you just ask them, it was like a checklist. Hey, are you complying with NIST 800-171? They just respond to it and say, yes, we are. So now DOD is like, yeah, we're not just going to ask you to just say, yes, we are compliant. We're going to come out there and we're going to check to see if you are really compliant. So they took NIST 800-171, which is like, I call it NIST 853 light. So they take that and say they build a framework, a certification around it called Cybersecurity Maturity Model. I have a feeling that since they call it maturity model, it's going to mature into this 853 at some point. But they didn't just want to start off with this 853. 171 is about 110 security controls. That's a little more manageable than this 853, which is like, I think it's about 1,600 security controls that you have to be compliant with. But we'll talk a lot more about those tools and those frameworks in the following weeks. So mission-driven purpose, we redefine your service through a new mission, whether you were security, your MOS was in management, or your MOS was in supply chain management. That's all. There's as you can see, as you will see, can translate into a fulfilling cybersecurity career. Any questions so far? Okay, I'm doing such a good job. No questions. So we talk about this week. We want to talk about transferable skills. So we want to recognize how cybersecurity fields align with your military principles, such as defense strategy, intelligence analysis. We have some intelligence specialists. I was in the Navy. We have intelligence specialists in the Navy. Translating to analyzing. I talked about SIEM, which is a tool that we use to aggregate logs, all the computers on a network, all the devices in the network. Anything that happens, any data that's being transmitted, stored on a system, any activity that happens, anytime somebody logs in, it documents that and sends that to a central log server called a SIEM. And a SOC analyst sits there and analyzes it. Intelligence gathering. If you see an event that happened on a computer, somebody logging to a computer at 1 a.m. and their work schedule is from 7 to 9 to 5, but they're logging in at 1 a.m. in the morning, that's an alert. It's an anomaly. So that analyst has to link, why did this person log in at this time of the night? That's, they can analyze that intelligence and report it or investigate it and see what happened there. Identify. We're going to identify some transferable military skills, and we're going to map those skills to core cybersecurity functions. Like I said, the SOC operations, GRC, compliance. We all did a lot of compliance in the military. Compliance is an everyday thing, really. Incident response. We have all those drills that we respond to incidents, intrusion, whatever the incident is in emergencies, response to that. Write a plan out and do a tabletop exercise. We're all familiar with those things. And of course, threat intelligence, proactive intelligence to say, hey, you may look out for this. We see this happening in these other networks, but you need to be vigilant to see if it's going to pop up on this network. So we're going to interpret the MOS is the AFSC or rating codes in the Navy, call it rating, and we connect to civilian cybersecurity career paths and job titles. It doesn't mean that if you did something, your MOS is in supply, you can't go be a network security analyst. You can definitely do that, but we can show you the skill that is easily translates into cybersecurity, where you can actually write your resume to speak to that skill that you have already. We're going to describe the frameworks. I kind of talked about it a little bit. The NIST frameworks, that ISO, which is an international standard. You're going to hear a lot about that. You may hear something else like IEEE standards. DoD also have their policies and regulations and instructions. One of which is very popular for different cybersecurity roles. You're going to hear a lot about that. If you're in the DoD cybersecurity space, you're going to hear about 8570 and 8140 as well. It maps your certification to roles that you can hold in the cybersecurity space in the DoD space. We're going to develop a personalized cyber transition plan for you, outlining your career paths and goals and targets and certifications. A lot of people, you can go from 0 to 100, right? Just like that, right? So a lot of people ask me, I have some friends say, I want to go into cybersecurity. You think I should get CISSP? CISSP is like one of their top tier. The DI is cybersecurity certification, right? Even if you can pass the test and get the certification, you have to back that up with many, many years of experience. And if you get a role that requires CISSP, and while in that role, you will quickly find out why you had to have a lot of experience to be able to get that role, because it's not something that you can just learn on a test. And your experience, it counts a lot when it comes to some of those certifications. And there's some entry-level certifications that we will talk about, like Security Plus, CYSA, and many other certs, certified in cybersecurity from ISC Squared. We'll talk about those, So, any questions? Okay. So the landscape. So I'm in cybersecurity. Why does it matter in today's world? Every time you turn around, you hear a lot of companies, organizations get hit by cyber attacks. Some of them announce it publicly, some of them don't. In the DoD, we have to have it. We have to be able to make sure that our information is secure, is accurate. We ensure the confidentiality of the information, the integrity, meaning that the information is unchanged by either purposely or unintentional changing that information, because you can make a life-changing decision based on that information. So you have to make sure that you ensure the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of that information. So cybersecurity is critical, not just for the military, for our homes, for our businesses. You hear a lot about organization taking over some, ransom, taking a network ransom, and they have to pay a lot of money to get, get the keys back, so to speak. So you want to be able to prevent that. And a lot of money is being spent in the space to be able to ensure the security and confidentiality and availability of this data. We'll talk a lot more about that when we talk about these tools, cybersecurity tools. So the global threat environment and digital warfare parallels. We know that nation states, I'm not going to mention the nation states, but the bad guys want to take over networks. They want to prevent you from having access to your networks. While they're doing that, they can do damage to those networks, whether it's government or organizations. So we'll also be talking about some core domains in cybersecurity, like operations. We talk a little bit about governance, intelligence, and resilience, making sure that you constantly improving your system. It's like being a doctor, really. You constantly learning about new tools, like doctors learn about new medicine. The new medicine comes out, you got to know what it fights and how to use it, and tell your patients why it's better than the old one. So cybersecurity is like that. Every day there's a new tool that we have to learn about. So you have to be dynamic and constantly learning for those new tools. I will compare some civilian versus defense sector opportunities. Civilian opportunities it's never been better, because now organizations that used to push cybersecurity to the background say, yeah, you guys are just going to prevent us from doing our work. So those now they see the need. I remember a few years ago, Sony had to give up a whole movie because North Korea took over their movie, one of the movies, because they didn't like what the movie was about. They threatened. They took the movie that they had, the main copy, it threatened to release it, and Sony had to just give up and just release the movie, which means they didn't make any income from that movie. So that's hundreds of millions in some cases. So they now see the need, I'm sure, to boost up their cybersecurity and protect their data. So they're willing to spend almost any amount to be able to protect their intellectual property. So again, like I spoke about translating military strengths to cybersecurity skills, the discipline. Of course, we know it's there. To work in cybersecurity, you have to be disciplined. You have to be meticulous. You have to pay attention to detail, precision. Because you're talking about analyzing files down to its lowest form, to look at the path, what it's doing, what is this app designed to do, malware analysis. So you have to be precise to prevent errors, because if you write a code, or if somebody modifies a code and you put the wrong string in it, or you put the wrong path in it, it can do more harm than good. So you have to pay attention to detail. You have to be accountable. If you take a decision, you have to be, of course, it's probably going to be documented, so you have to be take ownership of outcomes. It builds trust and integrity in every security operation. So if you know what you're doing, you know what you want to do, you know how it's done, you have to take responsibility. Say, I will do it. This is what we're doing. Leadership, just like any incident response team, there's a leader. There has to be a leader who makes the call, who makes the decisions. We get that from our military training. So that's critical as well in cybersecurity. Guiding teams through challenges fosters collaboration or mission success. There are some days that are long days. You just following the trail, looking at things that you can't find the solution to, and trying to follow the trail all the way down. People get burnt out, so you need that leadership to boost the morale and just provide the support that those analysts in some cases needs to find the root cause of the issue. Problem solving, of course. That's what you're going to do every day. You're going to be solving problems, especially if you get into areas like vulnerability management. Some days you're gonna run scans, and there's patches that doesn't have any. There's vulnerabilities that doesn't have any patches yet. We call those 0-day vulnerabilities, and you have to figure out how to protect your system until there's an available patch. So you have to come up with a way, present that to your leadership, and make a decision on how to solve that problem. And of course, incident response. Something happens, you get an alert, intrusion detection. You have to respond to that. You have to have a plan that you follow. There's usually a playbook for incident response. So you have a plan that you follow to be able to respond to that incident. And you go through the different steps of incident response, which we will cover later on in this course. You have to respond, you have to analyze, you have to respond, you have to recover, and then you have to restore your system back to what it was. Where you're going to talk about business continuity plans, disaster recovery plan. If it's an incident like from access, access control to things like natural disasters, which unfortunately happened during Katrina. A whole data center was wiped out in New Orleans. How do you recover from that? What was your backup? What was your BCP? How do you continue your business? Where's your COOP plan, continuing of operations plan? So we'll talk about all of that. So it's not something that you just respond to. You got to have a plan. So continuing on with identifying transferable skills, we talk about situational awareness, just knowing where you are, how you are. We talked about this in every training in the military. Situational awareness, you got to know what's going on. Threat detection. There are tools that does that for you automatically, but that human factor is still there. That's why we need cybersecurity professionals to be there. The computer can only do so much. Somebody has to sit there and actually make decisions, right? Risk management, we talked about that. There's this thing I used to tell my team. I'm like, your job, I simplify it as scan, patch, and scan. So that's just, we do more than that. I'm like, if you just patch, you scan to find your vulnerability, you patch the vulnerabilities, and then you scan again to make sure that those vulnerabilities have been remediated. So it's as simple as that. But there's a lot that goes into those three things. So when it comes to vulnerability management, is scan, patch, scan. The risk, when you see a vulnerability, that's a risk. You have to assess your risk and say, you cannot completely eliminate risk, right? So you want to reduce risk as much as possible, which is risk management. Mission planning, like I said, incident response playbooks. You got to have many playbooks. What if there's a fire? There's a playbook for that. What if there's flooding? There's a playbook for that. What if the system just get, corrupted? Cyber attack. There's a playbook for that. Intrusion detection, all of that. There's many playbooks, and you do, like I said, during this creating these playbooks, you do tabletop exercises to see if your playbook will actually work when the time comes to use it. And that's the same thing we do in the military. We do drills, fire drills on a ship. You do, weapons drills. Make sure that your weapon is going to fire when you shoot. That applies to cybersecurity as well. Intelligence gathering, like I said, threat intelligence analysis. There's a lot of different entities like CISA is a government entity, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Service Agency, which is a federal government agency under the Homeland Security Department. They send out threat analysis, threat intelligence. Check out iOS. It has a vulnerability. Check out this. In some cases, small networks or small companies don't have access to be able to have that intelligence. So that intelligence is being analyzed at the state level, and they can push that down to corporations and government entities that run networks, and they can use that information to analyze their systems and intelligence to be prepared to respond to anything that may come out of that. Again, this is understanding your role assignments. Intelligence, you talk about threat intelligence, that would easily translate over. Communications, network security engineer, basically hardening your network routers, boundary devices like routers and VPNs, being able to read the router logs, router configurations. A lot of the security policies, it's like securing the gates, around your property. That's the boundary. That's the entry point. So network security is really critical. If you can defend your network and make it almost impenetrable, you also, that's an added security to your network before it even gets to your actual network. The operations, we talked about security operations center. Analyst, SOC analyst is a very lucrative area in cybersecurity. It's a lot of monitoring and analysis. All the logs that I talked about that comes in from all the computer endpoints and network devices on your network, it goes into a SIEM, and a SOC analyst sits there on a dashboard and use all the tools that's available to them, and they can make that determination. And if they see something that's an anomaly, they can report it, send it to incident response team, say, hey, I haven't seen this IP address before on this network. This is the first time. They'll take it and run with it, they'll analyze it, and try to figure out where it's coming from and what it's doing. We talk about compliance. Compliance goes hand in hand with inspection. If you ask someone to be compliant with something, you have to inspect it. My boss used to say, you can only expect what you inspect. So if you're not inspecting it, you should not expect it, which is what DoD just finally did with the industry, the defense industrial base. They say, yes, Lockheed Martin, you said that you're compliant with this NIST standard before you get your contract. But the inspection is like, show me. Don't just tell me about it, show me. So that's what compliance and GRC is all about. GRC specialist, another pretty hot area. People get paid a lot of money to just make sure that you're compliant. A lot of people don't want to deal with compliance. It's like basically being a cybersecurity lawyer. You have to read the policies and you have to translate it into, how does my company comply with this policy? And what does the inspector going to think about the way we're compliant with this policy? So you have to make sure that you balance that. And it is not easy, but it's very rewarding, once you get it down. Logistics and planning, of course, risk analyst and security program manager. Again, that's the planning aspect of cybersecurity. The building, physical security. You have the security program manager. You have to look at the fire alarms, the smoke alarms, the flooding alarms. Are they compliant? Are they, is the server room, does it use a certain kind of fire extinguisher? Does it use the CO2 bottles? Is it still usable? So all those policies, you have to be able to understand them and apply them. You might think your server room is good to go, but once you get an inspection and they come telling you that you haven't even started all your firewalls, that's not the right ones, or your ventilation system is not adequate, or your windows are not secure enough. The ceilings is a false ceiling. You can't put a security server in there, and all those things. So that's where you have the risk analyst and security program manager to work on that. So I talked about DoD 8570 instructions. 8570 determines the level your role in the cybersecurity hierarchy. It tells you example roles that you can have in DoD. DoD came up and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. If you're going to be at IET level 1, you need to have security plus and network plus. You know, a lot of times security plus overrides network plus because there are some network plus material that's covered in security plus. So a lot of times if you have security plus, you will cover down to network plus. An example role that you can have is a junior SOC analyst. You know, I told you what a SOC analyst does. They analyze data that comes in from, you know, multiple sources and make a decision based on that. IT level 2, it's a little more technical. You know, they want you to have a next higher certification is CYSA, Cybersecurity Analyst from CompTIA. They administer that, and GSEC is another security certification that you can have. When we talk about certifications, we'll dive into each of those certifications and what they mean and what's required to get those certifications. Information Assurance Manager. That is, if you want to go into compliance, you need to get a management certification. An example of that is a CAP, compliance practitioner, compliance and assessment practitioner, or GSLC is like GAC, security leadership certification. That is from Global Information Assurance certification. You can be a security manager. You can be an ISSM, like myself, if you have a GSLC. You can also, for IAM level 2 and level 3, you can get CISSP or CISM as well. It's another example of the management certifications. For architecture, being a system architect and security architect, which is advanced, you can design network security systems. You can look at the network, and the architect can look at the network and say, this is where you need to put your firewall. This is what you need to, these are the protocols, these are the security systems you need to run on your boundary. This is the tools that you need to use. They can design a network with security in mind to accomplish your goal. You can be a security architect. That's an advanced certification. CISSP has a special certification just for architects, and so on and so forth. IT, this one right here was supposed to be IT level 3. I don't know. It's a repeat there. It's supposed to be a level 3 there. Level 3 for IT level 3, you need CISSP. At least a CISSP. You also need. It used to be called CASP. But CASP is now Security X. CompTIA has recently just changed it from CASP to Security X, which is, I believe that's their highest level certification that they have to be IAT level 3. For those of you that are in the Army, Navy, Air Force, this is some of their sample a military role and how what it directly translates in the cybersecurity world, the equivalent. It shows you some suggested certifications there. CTNs, even in the Navy, CTNs, cryptologic technicians, networks. I believe they call cyber warfare technician now. They just recently changed their name to cyber warfare technicians. They do threat intelligence, all the SOC analysis that I talked about, that's what's done. A perfect certification for that is certified ethical hacking, incident handling. You can do GCIH, CYSA as well. Of course, Security Plus is always recommended for a starter, even if you end up having CISSP and CISM. It's always good to have that beginning certification just tucked in your back pocket at all times. Never let it expire. So I'm going to go a little faster because we're coming up on a little bit of time here. So we have the public sector, private sector kind of comparison. Public sector, you have DOD, of course, DHS, basically government. You have the VA, you have the state government. State didn't used to have to do a lot of cyber, but now there's a lot of state governments that they have to protect data. They have systems they have to protect, their financial systems, the privacy data. Just protecting the system is just cybersecurity is not something that can be ignored anymore. In the public sector, you're gonna need security clearance. For DoD is they have a very well-established security clearance program. The government, like DHS, they also have security clearance program. Public trust, DoD, I believe the lowest is confidential or secret. Private sector, you have corporations, financial institutions, especially banks, healthcare. Healthcare got to be compliant with frameworks such as HIPAA, and PHI, personal health information. You have to protect that. PII. So in the private sector, it's business driven. If the private sector tries to save a lot of money in anything they do. So previous in the years past, they used to be a little hesitant in spending money because it needs to translate to dollars and cents for the private sector. And there's no clearance required, but however, they do a background check for any cybersecurity roles. I haven't seen any person that's just going to give you access, basically keys to their kingdom, without looking into the background. So even though they don't require clearance, they do a background check. In the private sector, they're flexible, faster moving. In the public sector, as you can imagine, is structured hierarchy. In the DoD, you have to pass a background check. You have to get your clearance. You have to pass through a lot of checks and balances before you're able to be hired. Private sector is a little faster, as long as you have the technical know-how, you have the skills, you have the certification, have the experience, they're ready to make you an offer. And as you can tell, public sector is a lot of compliance heavy. You have FISMA, FedRAMP. This is some of the frameworks we're going to talk about. FedRAMP is a compliance framework for cloud security. Basically, FedRAMP is a lot of standards that industry has to meet to be able to host government data. Make sure that it's based off of NIST 853 and whatnot. And also FISMA is a privacy information. And in the private sector, they deal with industry standards framework like ISO, talk about the international standards organization, SOC 2, PCI, DSS is for credit card. Any company that collects credit cards, they have to be PCI DSS compliant because they want to see things like our credit card numbers masked on the receipt when you print it out, or the system that runs these credit cards, is it patched, is it scanned, are there any vulnerabilities on that system? Do they meet certain criteria or security policies? How they enforce it, how often they enforce it. So you need to be PCI DSS before your system can receive credit cards. You hear a lot about federal contracting and clearance advantages. Veterans often have security clearances. That's a good thing. So that's 50% of the, the way, to getting into cybersecurity. Federal contracting offers opportunities through vendors like Booz Allen, Leidos. Those are some of the big names. Northrop Grumman is in there, and uh, SAIC. Those are some of the biggest names in defense contracting. There's a lot more defense contractors out there. Over 300 big names. Going to these cybersecurity events. You see a lot of these companies out there that are trying to get this CMMC certifications. These roles typically include steady pay, benefits, project variety aligned with mission-oriented work. Some of the growth sectors, I want to point out is the cloud security is a big, a big sector. Pretty much everyone is going in the cloud. Now we have Gulf Cloud. I don't know if you guys were aware. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, AWS had a big outage, and as you can see, it affected a lot of apps on your phone didn't work. A lot of things didn't work. Some TV service were out. I believe it's Hulu or some other platform was out. So this industry is heavily dependent on cloud. So cloud security is huge. The demand is rising as organizations move to the cloud because it's more dynamic, it's scalable. You can spin up a server in a minute. You can expand, you can add a network, you can add a node in no time. You don't have to wait for hardware. You don't have to go get software license. Well, you get licenses in the cloud, but you don't have to go wait for it. It's already there. So cloud is the future, and it needs to be secure. It needs to meet the cybersecurity triad of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So you want your data to be available whenever you want. You want it to be unchanged, which is integrity, and you want it to be confidential. Only to those that need to see it should be able to see it. And now, on top of all that, we got AI. AI is added to that. So it's an emerging field that is focused on security and machine learning. When two machines talk and make decisions, we need to make sure that it's secure. So how do we fit that CIA triad into this AI world and AI security? That is a challenge, and that's an expanding field sector in cybersecurity that it's gathering momentum right now. You want to be able to prevent AI from manipulating data that is not supposed to. So that is still something that is a challenge, and they need people like you to be able to come figure it out. And of course, compliance and GRC that we've talked about. We got a few more slides. So are there any discussions? Any questions for me? Something that popped, in your head while we're talking? No questions? I got
a question.
Okay, go ahead.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So like even in IT related fields in the military, how do you mitigate that military jargon that's usually only specific to military equipment to try to convey that in like a civilian tone?
Okay. So if you were in IT in the military, it's pretty much no matter how military the equipment is, it's still, it's still storing, transmitting ones and zeros, right? It's still transmitting data, it's still processing data, it's still storing data. You can translate that into today's cybersecurity and IT. A lot of time I had that struggle when I was transitioning into the military. I didn't, out of the military, I had to change some of the military words, some equipment that you may have that actually does the same thing as a router or a switch, you know, but they give it a name, they give it a nomenclature that is not everyday name, but it's doing the same thing. You know, you just have to write that in your resume. You have to speak to it in civilian terms. Yeah. So it does translate, especially if you were doing something with computers, cybersecurity in some form. Even if you were working in weapon systems or radars, you know. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, it pretty much answered my question. So basically, you're just converting it to what would be a civilian equivalent, kind of.
Yes, you know, basically, if you write it down, what it is that you do, not actually the name of the system, like maybe you updated BIOS on a weapon system's computer system. It might have been a mainframe computer, right? You know, um, disk, data transfer, formatting, inputting data, whatever it is that you do, if you write all those things down, you can see that it actually translates directly into IT skills, even in the civilian world. Just the difference is just the military equipment itself, you know?
Got it.
So that's what we heard, at the end of this 6 week course, we can sit down, we can do an individualized mentorship where we can look at the skills that you bring in from the military or anywhere else, and we can help you translate that into what we are talking about here, and kind of align that with the roles that would best fit those skills. Okay. Does that make sense to you?
Yep, perfect sense.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Okay. All right, we talked about frameworks. I'm just going to touch this briefly because I did already talk about this. This is the breakdown of those frameworks. One of the big ones is the cybersecurity framework. It's just called CSF. The government developed this framework, and it helps organizations identify, protect, detect, respond to, and recover from cyber threats. It's commonly used by federal agencies, contractors, and US-based businesses that work with government data. So if you go to NIST, if you just Google NIST cybersecurity frameworks, it'll show you all the NIST cybersecurity frameworks that's out there. Like I said, the most popular ones are the NIST 800 series. If you go to NIST special publications, NIST is a part of the US Department of Commerce. They are the ones that write this NIST frameworks. And some of the conferences that I've been to, cybersecurity conferences, that's actually a NIST representative from the Department of Commerce that comes in. They work with universities like the university, Harvard, MIT. They help write these NIST cybersecurity frameworks. ISO standards is an international standards for creating, maintaining, an information security management system. Before we adopted NIST or CMMC or anything else, it was ISO 27001. ISO 9000, you see some companies advertise, we're ISO 9001, that's quality management system. Well, the 27001 is specifically geared towards information security management. How are you managing your information security? Do you have MFA? How do you secure your buildings? Or do you have physical security policy? How do you safeguard PII? How do you check for vulnerability? How often do you scan? Those kinds of things. At the end of the day, they give you a certification and say this company is certified in ISO 27001, and they take that and they put a big stamp on their website that they're certified, and they can go get contracts, and they can brag it in front of their customers that they do have this. They're going to secure their information. Of course, DoD uses risk management framework. Risk management framework is it's kind of like a cycle framework, which it really never ends. You know, you categorize your system, you pick what security controls that you want to implement on your system once you categorize it. So you categorize your system and say, well, this system is going to be a weapon system. So categorization is going to determine what security controls that you apply to that system. And then once you pick the security controls that you want, you implement that security control. And then once you implement the security control, you get someone to come assess you to see if your implementation is correct based on the language of the policies, you know, the framework. It says do this of the security control. So that's where you get somebody comes and assess it, and then gives you a thumbs up and said, yes, you did implement the security control as written. And then you get your certification, and then you go into monitoring that those security controls that were implemented are still implemented until the next cycle of categorization, selecting security controls, implementing security controls, and testing it to make sure those security controls work, and then getting certified. So it's kind of like, that's why the government likes the risk management framework, because it's a life cycle. It almost never ends. You're always doing something in that RMF cycle. Why frameworks matter in security compliance? We talked about that. It provides a structure, consistency. It ensures organizations meet legal, regulatory, and contractual obligations. You know, some of the contracts in the DoD will tell you that you need to, you know, you have the DFARS clause, you have FAR clauses, you have the OMB clauses, regulations, you have the executive orders. All those things, it ensures that you are compliant with those things, those frameworks and those policies. So frameworks also define job functions and requirements. You know, it clarifies your responsibilities. If you're a risk management framework analyst, that's all you do. They give you a system and you run the RMF program on that system. You categorize it every 3 years. You said, okay, is this system still the same? Am I still processing the same level of information, the same information that I was processing last year? If that changes, that means that your security controls are also going to change. You know, if I didn't use CUI before, if I didn't process, store, transmit CUI before, that means that I have to upgrade my categorization of that system to include CUI. So now my security controls has to speak to that. So I may have added security controls. So that's why you have to constantly recategorize your system every periodically, so you determine how much what security controls you need to apply on it. So the job functions, it depends on the organization. If it's a small organization, you know, one person can do more than one job. But a lot of times in cybersecurity, you are just going to be have a single role depending on the level that you are in that organization structure. You can be an RMF analyst. You can be a compliance. You can be an ISSO, Information System Security Officer, which assists the information security manager in implementing whatever framework or controls that organization is responsible for. So you can assign your daily tasks. I know for ISSOs, a lot of the ISSOs work on security controls for NIST 800, XX series. If it's 853, you have 1650 some controls that you need to. That's a whole year's worth of work. just reading each of those controls, and they have subcategories in those controls, and implementing it to the letter of that NIST security control. That defines the role for that ISSO. They live in those security controls for that whole year, and the following year they go back to do it again because RMF is a life cycle. It goes in a circle. So linking frameworks to certification goals, if you want to, if depending on what you want to do, you get the certification to match it. If you want to work on this, you get the CAP certification and assessment professional. You can get CAP. CAP is an ISC squared certification. You can get an ISO certification. Most of the people that have CAP, they can do RMF. Basically, it's a compliance certification. CISSP can do it all. CISSP covers everything. Maybe not so much in depth, but it covers everything. If you've some of the instructions here that's taken those tests, that test before, they know what I'm talking about. It covers everything. So that's why it's so attractive for people to go get CISSP, because you don't have to worry about anything else really. It can help you, frameworks, choose where you want to go with your career and whatnot. We talked about that. So now that we've talked about all that, we can also help you build your transition plan, your current skills and experience, like I was asked about. We can write all those skills down, and then we can translate it into cybersecurity skills to match that. We set some SMART goals for your cybersecurity transition. Identify certification pathways and training priorities. I'll talk about Security Plus. There's a class here for Security Plus. You can check that class out. It's a really good class. Tracking progress and accountability. We're going to be here to say, hey, we need to probably go back and do this, or we need to do this, and are we on the right track? Just kind of like checking and making sure that we're on the right path. You get to choose your cybersecurity specialty, whatever it is that you want to do. If you want to do SOC, GRC, or you want to do cloud, etc., whatever interests you, we can help guide you in that direction. Outlining milestones, education, networking, and experience. I've had some people say, hey, just go get a master's in cybersecurity, a master's degree. There's a time to do that. But if you're if you're transitioning from another career into cybersecurity, it's good to do that, but you may get a more bang for your buck by starting from, getting certification and some experience, and then build that up. By the time your master's in cybersecurity is really gonna, give you the most return for your investment, is gonna be when you have a lot of experience and you have a lot of maybe certification along the way, and then you just finish it off with that master's degree. But if you already have it, it's fine. Leveraging veteran benefits and training resources. Oh my God, I was one of them. I used my GI Bill. All along the way, they pay for certifications. This veteran rehab. I'm not a VA specialist, but there's a lot of programs you can get as a VA, as a veteran, to be able. They pay for your certifications, pay for school, they pay for, if you didn't use your GI Bill, you can still use it. Very flexible. I remember when I was a young sailor, it wasn't that flexible, but now you can pretty much pay for any kind of certification with veterans benefits. We create you a 6-month action plan. Your training here that can translate into experience, or your experience in actually learning about tools, like scanning tools, like SIEM, you know, like uh, SOC tools, GRC tool. You can learn that, and that counts as experience. If you can actually put your hands on that and you know how to run scans, you can actually put that on your resume that you do know how to run scans using Nessus. Nessus is one of the industry standard for scanning tools. Nessus Tenable. If you can learn that tool and get efficient and understand that tool, that's really good experience there. And there are people here that can teach you to be able to get those skills to do vulnerability management with Nessus. We talk about assessing your current skills and experience. You can use AI tools like ChatGPT to get career feedback and clarity. AI tool probably can, a lot of people use AI tools like ChatGPT. I teach classes at college, and some students they blow off their assignments, and then the last day of the class, they just spit out like three papers at once and submit it. They forget to remember all the extra commas and the equal signs and all those things. Like, you do know I can tell that AI wrote this, right? So there's a way to use your chat GPT to get, the right results. And it can go out there and grab information and just simplify it for you. Setting SMART goals, making SMART meaning specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. Don't just start off and say, I'm going to get CISSP in 4 weeks. If you do that, that means, wow, you're amazing. But you need to be able to set goals that make sense. And it's if you have 0 years of experience and you have CISSP, that's just like not having one at all, almost. It's not bad to have it, but you gotta set SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound goals. Identifying certification pathways and training priorities. Like I said, start with fundamental certifications like Security Plus, Network Plus. If you're going to take Security Plus, I would say just go for Security Plus. If you want to really go into network security, maybe I could recommend Network Plus. I'm built towards specialization such as CEH. If you want to be a SOC analyst, CYSA. If you want to be, you can be anything with CYSA because it's general cybersecurity associate. And of course, CISP is the big certification. Choose certifications that match your target role: SOC analyst, GRC, cloud security, etc. Focus on one certification at a time for mastery and measurable progress. There is nothing like somebody showing up with a CISSP and you ask them a question and, they say, oh, that was on a test, but I don't remember, We talk about tracking progress, just being with you all the whole step of the way, making sure that you're able to study well, track your study time, milestones, course completion. You can schedule weekly check-ins with a mentor, review and update your cybersecurity transition plan monthly to stay aligned with your goals. Of course, choosing your specialty, we talked about that, based on your interests. Act as a cybersecurity mentor based on your background, recommend which cybersecurity specialty best fits your goals and what have you. We talk about milestones, education, networking, and experience. I touched on that. Education is always good. If you see a lot of cybersecurity jobs, once you have a bachelor's degree, and then certification, experience is very valuable. Volunteering, interning, hands-on project. Uh, a lot of people that transition to cybersecurity, it's the experience aspect of it. I know somebody last week asked me about DoD clearances. There's a lot of companies out there. You just got to find it through networking. Again, we have a lot of this is like a hub for a lot of individuals that you're going to interact in this platform of cybersecurity. They've worked in the industry for many years, decades. Somebody can connect you in their LinkedIn feed or wherever in social media. There are companies out there that will take a chance and get your security clearance. Like I talked about a CMMC, cybersecurity maturity model. There are companies that are called C3PAOs. They are the companies that go out there and certify the defense industrial base to make sure that they're compliant with CMMC. Those companies, they're not able to pull a lot of assessors from the DoD. So they have to create their own, community of assessors, and they will go out and get you those certifications so that you can help them achieve their goals. That's one area that I have seen that are very open to getting security clearances, as certifications are, security clearances to individuals that are just joining their team. And then I talked about the 6-month action roadmap. 1 to 2 months, you're going to assess your skills, choose a path, enroll in training, such as this. Phase 2, 3 to 4 months, you earn the certification. Start with the easy ones, the certified in cybersecurity. I believe ISC Squared is giving that for free. You don't have to pay for that certification. I may be wrong, but when this first started, it was free. You can just take the test. If you pass the test, they give you the certification. It's iscsquared.com, I believe. Build your resume, and grow your network, whether it's here, online, LinkedIn. You grow your network, and that's where you can get experience and get references. Phase 3 is 5 to 6 months. Apply for roles, conduct interviews, and refine your cyber brain. You apply for roles. One thing that I like to tell people about applying for roles, if you always take that role, you print out that job announcement, and you speak to what that job announcement is looking for. If they say they need someone with a bachelor's degree and has 3 years of cybersecurity experience, right? Don't tell them you have 25 years experience like me, and then you have a master's degree. They're not going to say that you're overqualified, but they're looking for someone with a bachelor's degree. If you have a bachelor's degree, say, yes, I have a bachelor's degree. Do you have 3 years experience? Even though you have 25, you say, yes, I have 3 years experience. I've seen that to work a lot for people because that employer may just be looking for entry-level person. And even though your degrees, masters in cybersecurity, very impressive, they're not looking for someone masters with cybersecurity at that time. But then you get in the company, you grow. I remember my boss asked me, hey, I didn't know that you had a master's in business. I'm like, well, you're looking for that? He said, no. I said, well, I do if you're looking for that. So yeah, don't overdo it. Just speak explicitly to what they're asking for. And we're almost wrapping up here. Sorry, it took a long time. So we talk about all these frameworks. I'm not going to go over it again. So your military experience is absolutely your foundation. It was my foundation. Framework shape the cyber landscape. We talk about frameworks. When you hear frameworks, think NIST, think FISMA, think, ISO 27001 or any ISO, NIST, cybersecurity frameworks, you can speak to it intelligently, about, those frameworks. Your cyber transition plan is your roadmap. You take your skills, you take your experience, you match it to what interests you in cybersecurity, and then set up a roadmap to be able to achieve your goals. And you'll be on your way on your 6 months plan to an exciting cybersecurity career. That's very lucrative, and you can go from entry level to middle level. Before you know it, you're in management in cybersecurity. If you want to do that, yeah, you can move up very fast. And it's a very dynamic field. For questions related to this course, please email me. You can see me on the app, Kusanga.